going on, Four-Eyed fans? This is Jorge Edwards here from Fourth and Frames, the fantasy football podcast, or fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host today, and with me I got Brian Ford and Tyler Heil joining me, talking some offense heading into week number 5 of the NFL/fantasy football season. Let's start with you, Brian. How are you doing today, man?
Been a long day. Had a lot going on after work. I'm kind of tired. Didn't have quite as much time to prep as I usually do, but very happy to see you two and be talking fantasy football and have a cup of coffee.
Hey, there you go. Tyler, man, it's been a while. Glad to see you're up and running again. How are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful. I can actually speak again, so that's really nice. And I am having not a cup of coffee like Brian is, so there you go.
I am very envious of Brian for having a cup of coffee right now. I should have grabbed that before I came downstairs. So like we do on the 8 o'clock show, we always go over the offense options here that you want to be considering this week. But we're going to get into some news right now. Let's get into some news/injury news. David Montgomery out 4 to 5 weeks with, I think, it's not a hamstring. Is it a knee sprain or is it a ligament sprain or is it a hamstring? It's something leg related, right? Obviously.
I think I heard it was a hyperextended knee.
Yikes.
Yeah, I've heard a few different things. Hyperextended knee, I've heard an MCL sprain. They're not really being very forthcoming with it, but at least we got the time frame.
Right. Well, he did really well last week. I mean, he put up over 100 yards, 23 attempts. I mean, he was basically being fed the ball. Sad to see him go down, but in relief, Damien Williams came in, 8 attempts, 55 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 15 yards. He's dealing with his own injury as well, but they seem pretty optimistic that he should be good to go this Sunday versus the Raiders. The Raiders are 15th against the run. They rank 28th in fantasy points per game allowed, which is bad, 22 fantasy points per game. So if Damien Williams is good to go, this is a pretty enticing matchup here. Brian, CMC was back at practice. What do you make about that?
Well, it's a lot sooner than people thought. He was limited. I think you'll want to definitely check up on things tomorrow to see how he bounces back and if he is able to return to the practice field again after the activity that he went through today. I'm still very tentative on him. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of teams where who are you going to bench him for kind of thing. But if I had another option this week, even though the Eagles aren't too, tough a matchup, I might be looking for something else. It's definitely something to monitor over the next few days.
Fair enough. And Tyler, we had Joe Mixon last week. He was absent for pretty much most of the second half, or at least I shouldn't say most of the second half, but like the part of the second half that mattered, aka the end of the game. Fortunately, it worked out well for the Bengals. What are you hearing about his ankle injury?
Kind of the same thing as last year, where they're not giving you much information. But Zach Taylor called it minor. He called him day to day. I'm not falling for that again. I'd say fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Everything I'm seeing, it looks like it's a high ankle sprain. He might be out this week, might be out the following week, but I would not count on him this week. He was a DNP, did not participate at practice today. I would keep an eye on it the rest of the week, but I'd say it's trending toward him missing this week.
You think there's anybody on the Bengals roster at the running back position that people should be considering?
Oh, yeah. I've seen a lot of ads of Samaje Perine. I think he's the obvious choice. He got a lot of run last year when he was with the team, even with Gio Bernard there. I think he's the clear backup. I'm not sure Chris Evans will get much run. I've seen Perine added for pretty cheap off of waivers in a lot of my leagues. So I'd say if you can still get him or if you got him for cheap, that you're going to be pretty happy for at least a week.
Nice. So reports also heading out of Tennessee now. Apparently, A.J. Brown is practicing. Julio Jones is still not. Still no word yet on whether or not we're going to get any wide receiver help from Ryan Tannehill this week. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But he was limited today, so A.J. Brown that is. So we'll see. It's better than not being on the field at all, which he was last week. So we'll see. Let's head into our prime matchups. Various positions on offense. I'll start us off at quarterback. and this is the caveat, if he starts, if Jimmy Garoppolo and his calf injury can't go, I think you fire up Trey Lance this week. I know it's bold. It'll be his first official start as a rookie. Guy put up 20 fantasy points in a half, like if that, against the Seattle Seahawks the other day. Now, Arizona has been kind of stingy to the quarterback. They're only allowing on average 17.6 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position, but they have the second worst run defense, which I hear is great if you have a mobile quarterback who can make plays with his legs and get out there and get you those yards and create time for his wide receivers to get open. This could be something special. This game reminds me of, again, this is if Trey Lance is the starter. This reminds me of the game of the Eagles and the Cardinals last year, where Arizona was okay in the secondary or against coverage, against quarterbacks. And, nobody was expecting Jalen Hurts to do his thing, and he went off against Philadelphia. I just see this being another example of a mobile quarterback making his team look better than it is, even though they're pretty darn good, to begin with. Against this Arizona Cardinals team, I think the Cardinals are for real. I think they're going to put up points, and it's going to be a catch-up game, and Trey Lance is going to be running all over that field, getting you those yards, aka the Konami code. So fire up Trey Lance this week if he is the starter. What do you got for us, Brian, at running back?
I looked at the matchups a little bit, and I like two. First one is going to be Zeke. Obviously not too much of an off the under the radar pick there, but the Giants gave up 120 yards to Kamara last week. They're about middle of the pack of giving up points to running backs. I think it's going to be a positive game script for Dallas, and Dallas has shown that in positive game scripts they're going to feed Zeke and run the ball maybe more than we expected. And so I think he's going to have a big week. Yeah, went for 20, 143 and a touchdown last week on the ground in a positive game script, and I'm expecting another big day this week. And then briefly, I'll touch on Damian Harris. The New England team total was -1 rushing yards against Tampa Bay. Damian Harris gets the Houston Texans this week. I expect a bounce back. I expect a positive game script, and fire him up.
Nice. Who do you got for us at wide receiver, Tyler?
I have a couple as well. First one, I'd say, well, they're both terrific matchups. Laviska Shenault for the Jacksonville Jaguars going against the Titans in Jacksonville. DJ Chark is out for the season. You could see that last week, when Viska got 6 receptions for 99 yards as soon as Chark went out. He's going to be targeted often. I think the opposing team is focused on Marvin Jones. He's probably the clear number one for that team. I'd say fire up Viska and let him go. He's going to get rushing attempts. He's going to get close to the line targets, and I think he's going to start going down the field a little more. Next one is Jalen Waddle. Okay. We just lost Will Fuller at least for 3 weeks with a broken left hand. He's out. James, I think he's going to get a lot of targets. Devontae Parker is going to get a lot of targets as well, but Waddle has been heavily targeted over the past few weeks. They're playing Tampa. Tampa has had every single problem you could have in the defensive backfield. They've lost 3 cornerbacks, I believe, so far this season. I think Waddle's going to get a lot of targets early, often, short targets, and down the field targets.
Good call. Now let's go to the tight end position. My guy, who I never thought I would say that the Dallas Cowboy is my guy, but Dalton Schultz. Look, the guy's been on a tear the past couple weeks. He's basically like the number 2 in targets on the team. It's like opposing defenses are like, it's either going to be Amari or CD, but it's not going to be both. And it just so happens that Amari Cooper has been the wide receiver, has been the primary beneficiary in terms of fantasy production. But who's the number 2 receiving option on the team? Apparently it's Dalton Schultz now. And he's going against the Giants, who give up the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position. This has the makings of a good old Giants Cowboys showdown here, and so look for the hot streak for Dalton Schultz to continue in Week 5. this week. And before we get into our flex offs for the week, we're going to remember to give a shout out to our sponsors, Dynasty Pandemic, at Dynasty Pandemic on Twitter. Follow Clay, who he's actually the creator of Dynasty Pandemic. He's at @dpandemic_Clay. Look, it's a great website, dynastypandemic.com. You go over there, you literally jump into their chatter feed as soon as you get to their webpage, or homepage rather. You just start talking fantasy football. No drama, none of this. I'm shaking my hand for those who are not listening, or not watching right now. None of this Twitter drama, none of this Facebook drama. You just go there, you just talk fantasy football. You meet some really cool people. You answer some questions. You ask some questions, get some questions answered. They have a lot of cool brands over there: Dynasty Trades HQ, Dynasty and Chill, Dynasty Warzone, Debbie Marketplace, Dynasty Happy Hour, us, Fantasy and Frames. Just a really cool resource just to find some up and coming brands that are up there, or brands that have been there for a while that want to further establish themselves in the fantasy community. You can download their app on Apple and Google. That's Dynasty Pandemic. So head over to dynastypandemic.com today, as well as follow them on Twitter at Dynasty Pandemic, and follow Clay, who heads up dynastypandemic.com at dpandemic_Clay. And with that, let's get into our flex offs of the week. Man, today's show is just really going by really fast, don't you think?
Yeah.
We're like 11 minutes in, and we're like 3/4 of the show.
We're ready at flex off. Let's go.
Right, let's do this. Let's get into our first flex off matchup for the week. As I'm trying to pull up the show sheet right now. Here we go. We're going to do Brian versus myself. Brian, you're going to be in the corner of AJ Green. And I'm going to be in the corner of Tyler Boyd, his former teammate. AJ Green, the Cardinals, going against the San Francisco 49ers, and Tyler Boyd of the Bengals going against the Green Bay Packers. Brian, why don't you tell us why AJ Green is a better option than Tyler Boyd this week?
Okay. Let me start by saying that I love Tyler Boyd. He's somebody I was high on. He's somebody who I thought, Joe Burrow would like to target. I have him on multiple teams. I'm firing him up every week on those teams. So he's not a bad option. AJ Green is really intriguing, right? He's had 6 targets in every game. Right? The last 2 games, he's caught 5 of them and gone for a touchdown last week. San Francisco's defense, not bad, right? But when you're going up against Arizona, you have to worry about Kyler passing, Kyler running, 2 viable running backs, especially depending where they are on the field, Connor closer to the goal line. You have to worry about probably 4 receivers, of which Green is one. And Green seems to be like a reliable person that Murray likes to target. And I think in the Cincinnati Green Bay game this week, looks like Jair Alexander will be out. I think then it'll be more of a Jamar Chase game. And I also think, we saw T. Higgins come back to practice today. There's a possibility we'll see him go on Sunday. So I don't think Boyd's going to go for 9 and 118 again. So give me the veteran AJ Green.
All right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let me tell you why Tyler Boyd is going to outproduce AJ Green this week. And again, I think AJ Green is redeeming himself one fantasy week at a time for fantasy managers for all the years. He has a lot of redemption, to make up for the years of disappointment the past few seasons. That being said, he's been playing very well. Tyler Boyd is the most targeted wide receiver on the team, whether T. Higgins is on the field or not. He had a great week last week. Obviously, T. Higgins wasn't there. The target volume was going there. CJ Uzomah, the tight end for the Bengals, he soaked up a lot of the target share also, and he was very productive. But it's the receptions, it's the moving the chains. And Tyler Boyd is their slot wide receiver, the slot cornerback for Green Bay. Chandon Sullivan, one of the worst graded defensive backs on Green Bay's roster. I think this has the potentials for being a shootout. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense is just starting to click. You saw you saw Randall Cobb starting getting more involved in the offense last week. Devontae Adams, he had a down week. You look for that to correct itself this week against the poorest team secondary for the Bengals. I think this is going to go back and forth. I don't know if this is going to be so much a running game thing as it is for Green Bay, which tells me they're going to be throwing it a little bit more, which tells me then by default with no Joe Mixon, they're going to have to be throwing the ball everywhere to everybody just to keep up in this shootout. And I think Tyler Boyd gets his share. I think the target volume is going to stay with him this week. I think they have to double team Jamar Chase. I know Jair Alexander's not there, but they got to take away one of their best wide receiving options there, I think, on the outside. So give me Tyler Boyd this week. And with that, Tyler, I don't know if you've been listening, you've been watching, but when whoever is not participating in the flex off, they get to actually decide who is the winner of the flex off matchup. So we get to appeal to your good graces. Who won that flex off matchup this week?
I'm going to have to go with Brian and AJ Green. I think AJ Green's got a nice matchup this week. And you know what? I just like that argument. I'm a big fan of that. Bring on AJ Green. Bring on the Cardinals, man.
All right. Let's go to our second flex off matchup. I'm going to take I'm going to be in the corner of Zach Moss. This was originally going to be Nate's assignment, but he had to go to work, and we all know how much Nate loves Zach Moss. Against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. And Tyler, you're going to be in the corner of James Conner going against the San Francisco 49ers. Why don't you tell us why people should be taking James Conner over Zach Moss this week?
All right, why people should be taking James Conner over Zach Moss. Zach Moss has had a few nice weeks. He's had at least one touchdown every week. You know what? He's had about 13 carries each week, a little less on 1 week. He is not going to see the amount of carries this week. Him and Devin Singletary are splitting the carries pretty much right down the middle, and they are not going to have the same opportunity to run as they have the past 2 weeks. They are playing the Chiefs. Chiefs are coming to town. This is going to be a high-scoring game. They're going to run it up, and I would not be surprised if both Singletary and Zach Moss saw single-digit carries and limited targets because neither one is great in the pass game. James Conner, on the other hand, they are playing San Francisco. James Conner is the clear RB2 on that team. However, he is getting a lot of carries. He's averaging over 13 carries a week, 13 and a quarter to be exact. This offense is absolutely rolling, and this Cardinals offense is not rolling because of some miracle scheme that Cliff Kingsbury cooked up. This offense is rolling because Cliff Kingsbury said, hey, Kyler, go do some cool stuff. And that is what he's doing every single week. So good luck stopping him. I would say this matchup comes down to who's going to score a touchdown. I am going to bet on James Conner because Chase Edmonds is not getting any carries in the 10 zone. They are letting Chase Edmonds do all the work for this team, and then they're saying, okay, Chase, go away. It's time to get James Conner in the end zone, and that is going to happen again this week.
So, I look, I get it. I like it. I'm trying to acquire James Conner in one of my leagues that I'm running back to fish it in. I get it. I totally understand. I'm a little concerned about the Arizona or the San Francisco front seven. They've been not as susceptible to a lot of fantasy production to their RB1s. Let's go back to something you were talking about with Zach Moss here. You're absolutely right. He is second on the team in rushing attempts and yardage behind Devin Singletary. But he leads all running backs on the team in fantasy points per game. Why is that? Well, because he gets the most rushing attempts in the red zone, in scoring position within the 10-yard line, within the 5-yard line, which is where you want your running. When you equate fantasy point production to a running back, you equate them to when they're in scoring position, not when they're in between the 20s, but when they're close to the goal line. And the number one guy for the Buffalo Bills, outside of Josh Allen, is Zach Moss. This is going to be a high-scoring matchup. I don't think this is going to be a duplicate of the AFC Championship. I think this game is going to be somewhat competitive. If memory serves, it was kind of a blowout for Kansas City. This is going to be a high-scoring matchup. You look at the AFC. Speaking of the AFC Championship last year, guess who was the lead red zone running back for the Buffalo Bills last year? Can you want to take a guess? TJ.
Josh Allen.
No. Well, running back. official running back. TJ Yeldon. They didn't even trust Devin Singletary, the guy who'd been there for so long, to handle red zone duties. No, The reason why it was TJ Yeldon is because, Zach Moss was injured. If Zach Moss was there, I guarantee you he would have gotten most of the red zone rushing attempts. So since he's going to be in scoring position a lot, since he's been such an efficient producer in the red zone, and what should be a high scoring matchup, give me Zach Moss this week. Let's see. We got a question here before Brian decides. They're going to play the old, hey, let's forget what Tyler said a few minutes ago by dragging this on. Wesley over on YouTube. I need a wide receiver and 2 and a flex. Who do I use? I got Robert Woods, Allen Robinson, Pittman, CEH. So I love the usage of CEH the past few weeks. I think maybe Andy Reid's realizing, hey, I have a running back that I can use in multiple facets of the offense. Here, let me include him in my game planning.
Yeah.
So I would throw CEH in there. Man, isn't it sad that I can't really give you a great answer for Woods, Robinson, or Pittman because I look at all of these and I'm just like, I want to say Woods. I can't. I think they have to get this right. He got a touchdown last week. Finally, they were able to take away Cooper Kupp. I would have to go Woods and CEH. Allen Robinson, he's been a major disappointment, and I don't know whether it's him or whether or not it's just this offense as a whole for Chicago. Tyler, what are your thoughts here?
I agree there. CEH is the smash flex to me. That's an easy decision. He's a top 15 running back. You play him. Allen Robinson, I'm to the point where you have to show me you're staying on my bench unless it's an absolute emergency until you prove that you can produce. Michael Pittman, he's played really well. I really like him. I think he's a great player. He's going to get some Marlon Humphrey treatment this week. I'm taking Robert Woods there.
And then we got another question for him. He asks, Dak Prescott or Matt Stafford this week? Short week, Thursday Night Football. Me, personally speaking, I get always a little bit concerned about players who are playing on Thursday Night Football just because you've seen it so much, the letdown, the short week, the short preparation. Tough. This is not going to be like a cakewalk matchup either. I mean, Seattle and LA, they're pretty good defensively. I would go Dak. I think there's more liability on the defensive side of the ball with the Giants than with the Seahawks. So give me Dak this week. Brian, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, to me, that's a tough one. We saw Dak in a positive game script last week, only complete 14 passes, but 4 of them went for touchdowns, right? Stafford is on short rest on Thursday. Seattle's defense can be underwhelming sometimes. Give me Dak.
All right. And so now with that, who won that last flex off now that you forgot everything that Tyler had just said?
James Conner has more red zone rushing attempts than Zach Moss.
Okay, so when I first look at the show sheet and I looked at this flex off, I was like, ew, Zach Moss and James Conner. And especially at the beginning of the year, you would have said double ew.
Right.
But, they've both done perhaps better than we expected. And I think both of you have had solid arguments. When I look at this, I think in the Arizona-San Francisco matchup, I think you're going to see over the course of the year, and this is why I think Connor might be a sell, I think you're going to see Kyler be more of that goal line back, like we joke about Josh Allen being. Connor scored 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. Is that going to happen 3 weeks in a row? He's pretty touchdown dependent for his value. I think, as Jorge said, the game will be competitive between Buffalo and Kansas City. It's actually going to be a really good game, I think. And I think they're going to try to keep Mahomes off the field as much as they can. So they're going to run more than usual. So I think that means carries for Moss. It is a tough one. I can see both of your arguments. But by a smidge, give me Zach Moss.
Yes.
How can you pick against James Conner and his 3.2 yards per carry?
Nice. All right, for our final flex off matchup for the week, it's going to be you two. So, Brian, and you're going to be in the corner of who should be the starting running back for the Chicago Bears versus the Las Vegas Raiders, Damian Williams. And Tyler, you're going to take Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon, everyone's darling in the preseason. Everybody who invested their hopes and dreams in drafting him in round 5 of their redraft leagues this year because they were thinking about the upside. Oh, it's a Kyle Shanahan offense. Of course, I want the running back that's going to be the guy there. A lot of question marks for both. But let's say that Trey Sermon has gotten the bulk of the work with Elijah Mitchell still out. I think he's still going to be the lead back this week. So let's start with you, Brian. Why Damien Williams versus the Raiders?
Okay. So you gave me AJ Green to defend and Damian Williams to defend this week. I don't know what I did to you, Jorge, but
hey, you won your AJ Green.
Yeah, that's true. I did. So I think you pointed out the key fact here is that Montgomery's going to be out, right? So Damian Williams is running back 1. This is Damian Williams, who's not too far removed from Super Bowl MVP Damian Williams. This is Damien Williams, who is a dual threat, running and catching. This is Damien Williams, who even while Montgomery was in the game last week, was getting looks. He went 8 for 55 and a touchdown last week. I think Las Vegas's pass rush is pretty good from what I remember. I think with assuming Fields is going to start, I think with the rookie quarterback, they're going to try to feed the running back like they did versus Detroit, where we saw, the running backs get 31 carries or something like that. So I think, it's going to be a game where they're going to want to feed the ball to Williams more. On the other hand, again, Trey Sermon, I think he had 89 yards last week and 19 carries. Not a bad week. But there was no Elijah Mitchell. And I think I saw that Elijah Mitchell could be back this week. I'm not sure. But either way, it's a Shanahan offense, and you really can't trust anybody, especially running backs. I mean, they were giving carries to Jacques Patrick early in the game while Sermon was on the sidelines last week. So, I think both are interesting options, especially if you've got some injuries or you're not getting production out of your flex that you think you should. But give me Damian Williams in what I think should be a game where he's going to get a lot of carries.
Tyler, if you pull this off, man, I swear. Yeah.
This feels like Apollo Creed versus Drago.
Well, hopefully not with that graphic of an ending, but let's see what you can do here. Tracer, you know what? And since I didn't see that report of a Mitchell, I'll include it to say, and I know this is kind of throwing things at you last minute there, Brian. Mitchell or Sermon, whoever's the lead guy there for San Francisco.
Can we assume there's one of them?
Again, if you can pull this off, kudos to you.
Okay, so I think there's still a chance Elijah Mitchell misses, first of all. Second of all, your note about Jacques Patrick getting carries early in the game, he got 2.
Okay, true.
2 whole carries.
True.
So Trey Sermon is the guy in that backfield. There's no Elijah Mitchell, no anyone else. Obviously, no Raheem Mostert, no Jeff Wilson. Trey Sermon is getting the carries. He just is. You're probably looking at 15 to 20 carries, regardless of the matchup against Arizona. Kyle Shanahan is going to run the ball. He always does. If he gets more comfortable with running the ball with Trey Sermon, I think he's going to give him a lot more opportunities. You're going to see him move closer to a Kyle Shanahan running back, which is, we're talking 5+ yards per carry. With that being said, you get Trey Lance in the game. You're opening up some running lanes. Trey Lance is running around behind the line. Defenses are spreading out a little more to try to contain him. You're getting some gaps in between the guards and tackles and in between the guards and centers opened up. They're going to start pushing it toward the end zone. You know, you got Debo on the outside. Debo is having an absolutely monster year. He is not going to have a dud game. He's going to help them move the ball. He's going to help them put it in the 10 zone, and that's going to give Trey Sermon every opportunity to put it in the paint at least once this week.
Okay.
Good one.
Look, you did a great job. Man. So it's really tough when when you're trying to like figure out, when you're a fantasy manager or you're an analyst trying to figure out what is the best matchup to exploit, what's the best one to give recommendations on, and you can look at the production, you can look at the matchups, and you can come up with all sorts of narratives in your head. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't really lie. And so let's think about this. The Raiders, are 15th according to PFF against the run. Granted, they allow 22 fantasy points per game to the running back position. Now, here's the thing. Are we trusting Matt Nagy in this Bears offense? I know Bill Lazor was calling plays last week, but are we trusting that? Are we trusting this offense to all of a sudden find its way, find its mojo, and just to start clicking? While the Raiders are not great against the run per se, they're great against the pass. And so you get, you look what Max Williams, the defensive lineman edge rusher, did against week 1 against Lamar Jackson. I mean, he tracked him down, brought him down multiple times, created numerous pressures and turnovers in the game. I don't see why they couldn't do that to Justin Fields this week. That being said, you go to San Francisco. The Cardinals are allowing 17.6 fantasy points a game. They are the second worst run defense. I trust this offense for San Francisco scoring points more than I do Chicago. I like what we were talking about there is the dual threat nature of Trey Lance, opening things up downfield for Debo or for Kittle. God forbid if he finally shows up to the fantasy football world, please welcome. We were definitely needing you to show up there to score some points for us. I like that. I like the offense for San Francisco more than I do like Chicago. So I'm actually going to go with Trey Lance this week. With Trey Sermon this week.
Okay.
Yes.
Now here's the thing: if it does not happen this week, I don't know. I'm out. This has the makings of the matchup where the stars should be aligning for San Francisco in this running game. If he is the guy, this is all assuming that Mitchell's not coming back and not throwing us through a loop. One thing that I was kind of interested in, I saw on Twitter, why haven't they traded for Matt Breda from Buffalo, who's doing nothing in that backfield? Like, I feel like that's the perfect guy to bring into your backfield to be productive, given all the years he spent there in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean they let him go.
I mean, yeah, we got a question here from Clamped EZ. Who should be my RB1 and RB2 this week? Jonathan Taylor, Darrell Henderson, Swift, Damian Williams.
That's an easy one for me. I'm just not sitting Jonathan Taylor. I'm putting Jonathan Taylor in my starting lineup. I guess Swift could do it. I can see him going off. That said, I'm putting Darrell Henderson in ahead of Swift. That might be a unpopular decision, but Darrell Henderson is getting all of the snaps. He came off an injury, and I believe he got 90% of the snaps last week.
Yeah.
And Sony Michel only got 10. So in a great offense and an absolute bell cow right now, I'm putting Henderson in there. I'm not sitting him.
Brian, what about you? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's a tough one, really. I don't think, despite my championing of Damien Williams in the flex off, I don't think he's really under consideration in this one. I think it comes down to, do you start Henderson or Swift along with Jonathan Taylor, who ran for 100 yards last week, and I believe gets Baltimore this week?
Baltimore, who they don't have their linebackers are not great at tackling. Yeah, I hear is an important thing when trying to stop the run.
So, I've been a Swifter. I love Swift. I know he had a down week last week, but Minnesota, who he gets this week, did let both Hunt and Chubb produce. So I think he and Jamal Williams might have a similar game. And I think the Rams-Seahawks game could really go either way. I could see a close game. I could see a team pulling away. I think it's going to be an interesting, wacky Thursday game. So give me Taylor and Swift for the Taylor-Swift combo.
Ooh. Okay. Taylor Swift combo. We should have Taylor Swift, a little Taylor Swift drop, which you just did right there. Yeah, I guess my concern with DeAndre Swift is didn't at one point in the game Jamal Williams had more touches or more rushing attempts than Swift. I think there was like a
I think he finished the game with more rushing attempts than him.
Right. That is a little concerning when their head coach comes out earlier in the week and they're like, "Hey, we're going to feature DeAndre Swift more," and then you give the former Green Bay Packer the lead in rushing attempts. I'm going to go Taylor Henderson. I think. I mean, until Henderson lays a goose egg, I'm kind of going to keep riding this offense here for the Rams. All right, let's get into our bust of the week before we get out of here. I'll start. Any running back on the Denver Broncos, a.k.a. Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams, taking on the Steelers, 27th fewest fantasy points per game, 11.3 average to the running back position. Split that a couple ways. That doesn't really sound too good for these running back options, despite how good Javonte has looked. And did you see the highlights of him breaking tackles? He went literally beast mode. All the thing was missing from that highlight was him actually getting into the end zone. So
it's like that Madden commercial with Derrick Henry dragging people through the streets.
Yeah, no, it was exactly like that. I just don't see that happening against Pittsburgh this week. They look to be full go in terms of all their defensive starters coming back from injury. And then there's potentially no Teddy Bridgewater, although I did see that there was a report that he was progressing through the concussion protocol. That does not necessarily mean he will be starting this week. And if it's Drew Lock this week, it's just going to be a massacre. So no running backs for Denver. Brian, who do you got as far as the bust this week?
Yeah, I had a tough time with the bust this week. I was going to pick on Denver as well. And, being that we expect Teddy B to be out, basically fade everybody on Denver. And I really hate the pass catchers. But maybe that's kind of cheating since there's an injury at quarterback. So a guy I'm looking at is Tyler Lockett. Now, this could be dangerous for me because sometimes he has a down game and sometimes he just goes off. And but from what I understand, he lines up in the slot more often than not. And I think this year, so does Jalen Ramsey, the cornerback on the Rams. I don't see it being too good a game for the Seattle offense with Aaron Donald putting pressure on Wilson. So I think Lockett is a bust this week.
All right. And Tyler, who is going to be your bust for the week?
So I don't know if I can call this a bust, but I have two. Okay. If it doesn't work, I'm going to say Brandon Cooks. He did not have a great week last week, but he had a wonderful first 3 weeks. He was great with Tyrod. He had a successful week with Davis Mills in there. He is the only weapon they have on that offense. And he is a damn good wide receiver. And that is why he is getting so many targets. And that is why he is still succeeding, even with Davis Mills throwing him the ball. That said, they're playing the Patriots. The Patriots know how to take away the other team's top weapon. And there's no debating who the other team's top weapon is. It is Brandon Cooks, and it is nobody else. In a pinch, I could probably play running back for the Texans. So, but you never know. I might lose my life, which is the most likely thing to happen. But
yeah, let me advocate not that happening at all. So good call. Got a question here from Jace. What's wrong with Kittle and Kamara? I need some more production. There we go. Thank you for throwing that lesson. what's wrong with Kittle? With Jimmy Garoppolo, it's a conservative offense. They don't really sling it all over the field. He locks in on one guy, and then they try and do enough in the running game to keep defenses honest. But he does this progression to that one guy and throws to him, and there you go. I think you're going to see this offense start to open up a little bit more once Trey Lance is listed as a starter there. So keep holding the faith on Kittle. That being said, who are you dropping George Kittle for? Nobody. And at this point, nobody's going to be trading for George Kittle. So you're stuck with him. That being said, you're stuck with potentially one of the top 3 or 4 fantasy tight ends this year, especially if Trey Lance gets into the game. As far as Kamara goes, what's wrong with Alvin Kamara? Drew Brees isn't the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints anymore, jumping off the ball to him all the time. Kamara's going to get his, but whatever you were expecting of him coming into this year, he's going to get all the touches, he's going to get all the targets. I'm like, well, no, he's not. Offenses have to run through multiple players, and they have to try and do their best to maximize everybody around them. And defenses are keying on Kamara. I mean, what else are they going to do? For whatever reason, there's a fundamental philosophy problem in New Orleans, and he is not going to return round 1 value if things don't change. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this thing about Kittle and Kamara?
I guess I'll go. Kittle, also got to remember they do use him to block sometimes, because he can, and they like to run. So you're going to see that happen. And plus, he's been nursing an injury, so keep that in mind too. I do think that if Lance takes over the offense, he will get better. I am a little concerned about Kittle, but again, who you dropping him for? Tight end is ugly after the first 3 or 4. So I think you're gonna have to roll with Kittle.
He's asking, would you start Dawson Knox instead of George Kittle? I would. I think what the Bills have been doing in incorporating Dawson Knox into this offense, aside from the running game situation, has looked the most complete it's been since Josh Allen has been a Buffalo Bill. They brought in Diggs last year. You got Beasley and Diggs. You got this passing game going, and the wide receivers, the quarterback connection, jumping off to the running backs every so often. But now you're starting to see the tight end getting incorporated here. This is very reminiscent of Cam Newton in Carolina. Has a couple wide receivers, loves his tight end. This philosophy, the scheme that you saw in Carolina. You're kind of seeing some similar types of production. I don't want to say it's the exact same thing because it's not, but you are seeing some similarities here. And ride the hot hand with Dawson Knox, I'd say, this week. Got a question here from Joey over on YouTube. New 2 wide receivers this week. I got T-Body.
Boyd.
Thank you. Robert Woods, Marvin Jones Jr., Cortland Sutton, and Laviska Shenault. Give me. I'm assuming this is PPR, Joey. If you're still listening, can you answer that, or is this half or non-PPR? Let's just assume that it is a half or a full PPR. Man, I feel like Shenault has to be one of these guys just because, they lose DJ Chark. The target volume has to go somewhere. More target volume has to be shifted towards Laviska Shenault. This is half PPR, he says. Cortland Sutton, I don't think so for me. Marvin Jones Jr., no. So it comes down to Boyd or Woods. I want to go Boyd and Woods and Shenault. What about you, Tyler?
See, I like Shenault. I do like Marvin Jones. I think it's a toss-up between who gets the lead in targets on that team this week. They're playing the Titans. The Titans are not very good. They're not threatening anyone. I don't want to limit your ceiling and say start both. So I would say go with your gut on the Jacksonville wide receivers. My gut would tell me to start Marvin Jones, and I would still play Robert Woods. I'd agree with you there, Jorge. I just can't quit him. I I can't quit Robert Woods.
No,
Bobby Trees, baby.
I agree. Brian, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, assuming Locke is going to start, you got to throw out Sutton right away.
Right.
I think, Tyler brings up a good point that either one, Chenault or Jones could see an uptick in targets with Chark out. It happened to be Chenault last week. I could see it being Jones this week. So you know what? Give me the first two. Give me Boyd and Woods.
Yeah, and I like that. Caveat to that: if Higgins doesn't play, Boyd.
Okay. Absolutely. I co-sign that 100%. All right, so that's going to do it for us on offense this week. Thanks, folks, for tuning in. Wow, we started off really, really fast, like halfway through the show with 12 minutes to go, 12 minutes in, and we finished up pretty strong. So I like it. Great show, guys. We'll be back in about 15 minutes for the IDP edition of Fourth and Frames here with Mike Wohler from 444, and then Nate Markham will be joining us a little bit later, possibly. We'll see about that. And then, of course, you can catch all of us on the Four Eyed pregame show every Sunday morning. We are now doing this at 10 a.m. Eastern, just so that we'll basically, since everybody else doesn't want to get up early and give you fantasy football information early on a Sunday morning, you know what? We will. And we'll help you win your matchups this week. So tune in for that. Check out if you've gone through your waiver process and there may be people still available. Check out our waiver wire articles over at fantasyandframes.com. Tyler, you put out ours for offense. Nate Markham put ours out for IDP. Starting tomorrow, we have our prime matchups at each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and IDPs. Each article each day, getting you through to Sunday. Of course, check out our starts and sit article today by Teddy Ricketson. That was published there for offense and IDP as well over at fantasyandframes.com. So don't forget to head over to fantasyandframes.com and check it out. And the podcast for this will be dropped tomorrow. So rate, review, and subscribe. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want to see more of. And so thank you very much for tuning in, folks. So for Tyler, Brian, I'm Jorge. See you later, guys.